Very good morning, very good evening, very good afternoon, depending upon our time zones. And my name is Dr. Sanjeev Sahni. I'm a professor of psychology from OP Jindal Global University. Greetings from OP Jindal. And I'm very happy to moderate this session because this particular topic is very close to my heart. And I have a very, very learned people with me. I would like to introduce all of them before I introduce the topic. So the first speaker we have is Dr. Norah Mcrae, Associate Provost, Co-Operative and Experiential Education. Then we have Professor Dr. Jae Kim, President of Continuing Education Division. And we also have Roswita, Dr. Roswita M. Aboe, who is head of the Office of International Office. So I just want to tell you that I have a little brief description of Norah Mcrae. She's an Associate Provost, Co-Operative and Experiential Education at the University of Waterloo. I was really wondering that it's Waterloo in England or Canada. Then I found that she's a graduate of Rotman Director Education Program, a leading national program for experienced board directors, and she served as a faculty member for a WACE Planning Institute of Global and Experiential Education and the WACE Assessment Institute. Mcrae also served as president of the Canadian Association for Cooperative Education and is a member of the World Association of Cooperative and Work Integrated Education Executive Council and Global Strategy. So Dr. Jae Kim is PhD of law, and he is a current president, the Center of Lifelong Education and Community Development in Kyungpook National University. And Roswita is the head, Office of International Affairs, University of Khairun, Termate in North Maluku. And I welcome all three of you. And why I said that this particular topic is very dear to me, because in India, I would just like to give you a little perspective. In fact, we are doing great in digitization. Unprecedented transformation has happened in India in the history of free world. Today, if I talk about FDI, it's almost touching $1,000 billion from 167 countries, not in one sector, in 61 sectors, and it has come across 31 states and union territories of India. And I also want to tell you half of this FDIs, almost $500 billion, has come in the last 70 months. So there's a sudden change. Now, when this industrialization thing happens in any country, you also need a competent, trained manpower as well. We are having a 1.4 billion population, and I also want to tell you the gross enrollment ratio is somewhere around 25, where government says it is 27%. But although we have achieved a major milestone where 100% children are admitting to the school at the elementary level, that is a big achievement for India. But by the time they reach to the primary school or the middle school, almost 21% people dropped out from the schools. By the time they reach to the high schools, or we call it as secondary school, another 23-4% drops out. And basically in the higher education, who completes are only 27%. Now the problem is, out of this 27%, most of these children are having a non-marketable skills. with due respect, I'm not trying to demean any subject. I'm just, if somebody is into political science, public administration, history, they have done a bachelor's, they are not a skill-oriented people where they can look for a job which is skill-oriented. Now, I know the data of Germany and South Korea, where I'm fully aware that almost more than 90% have some sort of a training in vocational training. So we in India, I'm in an industry, we don't get at times the competent manpower within India, like in the mining work. Jindal Group is the fourth largest industrial house asset-wise in India. And when we look to have people in our mining areas, we don't have a competent people. We may have to hire people from abroad, in spite of having such a huge manpower. Those are waiting for jobs. Second thing is which the employability has changed over the years. It's almost like, the 46% people are only being employed, those who have done some type of education. Even our engineers, in fact, you'll be surprised to know we have more civil engineers than masons. We have more electrical engineers than electricians. So skill development is missing in India in a big way. That's why I mentioned that this particular session really attracts me so much, that how in our respective countries, what we are doing and what the government is doing, how society is perceiving, and how we can go ahead in skilling, reskilling, upskilling the manpower. So may I request, let me start with Dr. Norah Mcrae, please, your viewpoints, please, on this.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Sahni. And I do want to apologize for the fact that my video feed is not working for some reason, but I do hope you can hear me. And I want to thank you very much for the kind invitation to speak. And I do represent the University of Waterloo, which is in Canada. It's in a community about an hour west of Toronto. And the University of Waterloo has many, many strong features. It's a fairly young university, started 65 years ago. And when it started, it had as part of its programming, and this is very unique in the Canadian context, a program called Co-Operative Education. And cooperative education is a form of experiential learning, but which explicitly has students working in workplaces. So students go to school for a term, they'll do a term of studies, then they'll go and work in 4-month, full-time, paid work terms in fields related to their studies. Then they'll come back, do another term of study, go back out and work, come back, study, go out and work. So if we're talking about our engineering students, for example, they will graduate with an engineering degree and 24 months of full-time paid work experience that aligns with their engineering degree. And this form of education is cooperative education, and we're known for it across Canada. We have the largest program of its kind in the world, topping about 26,000 students a year engaging in this program. So thinking about developing skills and the motivations to that help students stay motivated to complete their studies and retain in their programs and are attracted to institutions, as well as partnering very intensively with industry. This is something that we do in our programs quite extensively, and is something that's very important to the University of Waterloo and the portfolio that I lead. So it's a very interesting conversation for me as well, and I look forward to hearing from the other panel members.
Great, Norah, thank you very much. I've been to your university twice. It's a beautiful university, but I didn't know that you are training 26,000 people in your university on this. It's an amazing thing, and the other universities like us, we must learn. So in my next trip to Waterloo, I'm definitely going to come and see you, ma'am.
Absolutely, thank you.
We have now Professor Dr. Jae Kim. Yes, please.
예, 안녕하세요. 경북대학 평생교육원 원장 김문재입니다.
Good morning. This is Jae Kim, President of the Center of Lifelong Education and Community Development in Kyungpook National University, Republic of Korea.
이 자리를 만들어준 인달대학교 부총장님, 닥터 사니 교수님, 여러 교수님들에게 감사의 마음을 전합니다.
I would like to say thank you, JGU Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Sahni, and many prestigious professors and speakers as well for having me here.
그리고 올해 인도에서 개최하는 G20 정상회담을 기하여 이러한 세계대학 회의를 개최하게 된 것을 축하합니다.
And also, congratulations on your holding the World University Summit commemorating with the G20 Summit India this year.
저는 이 자리에서 평생교육에 대한 한국의 관점을 소개하려고 합니다.
Today, I will talk about Korean approach to the lifelong education.
한국의 모든 학생은 초등부터 고등학교까지 12년의 무상 의무 교육을 받으며 높은 교육열로 인해 현 청년층의 약 85%가 대학 교육을 이수했습니다.
All students in Korea receive 12 years of free and compulsory education from elementary school to high school. And also around 85% of young people are currently completing university education due to high educational fever.
실제 전 국민의 문율이 1% 이하의 정도로 교육의 형평성이 높습니다.
In fact, the equity in education is very high to the point where the illiteracy rate of the entire population reaches less than 1%.
그러나 사회가 고도로 발전하면서 극심한 출산율, 학령, 노동 인구의 감소로 이어져 사회적 부작용을 낳고 있습니다.
However, to low birth rate that occurs as society progresses to high level leads to an extreme decrease in both the school age and work age population, resulting in various social side effects.
이에 한국 사회는 인구 감소 및 노령에 따른 사회적 부작용을 해소하는 방안의 하나로 평생교육을 활용하고 있습니다.
Accordingly, Korean society is taking advantage of lifelong education as one of measures to resolve those problems by population aging as well as population decline.
이런 점에서 한국에서 평생교육은 노동 인구의 재취업, 재교육 또는 노령 인구에 대한 교양 함량을 목표로 하여 학력 교육, 시민 참여 교육, 문화예술 교육, 인교양 교육, 직업 능력 교육 등에 집중하고 있습니다.
In this regard, lifelong education in Korea aims at re-employment, re-education of the labor population, or education for elderly, focusing on supplementary education to upgrade the educational attainment, citizens' participation education, culture and art education, humanities and liberal education, and occupational education for ability enhancement.
한국의 평생교육 실시는 크게 정부 주도의 교육과 민간 주도의 교육으로 나눌 수 있습니다.
The implementation of the lifelong education in Korea can be largely divided into two categories like government-led and private-led education.
첫째, 정부 주도의 평생교육에 대하여 한국의 평생교육은 1999년 제정된 평생교육법, 1991년 제정된 직업교육촉진법 외에 국가로 규정되고 있습니다.
First of all, regarding government-led lifelong education, the lifelong education is a governmental duty, which is regulated by Lifelong Education Act enacted in 1999 and Vocational Education and Training Promotion Act enacted in 1997.
국가는 평생교육 기본 계획을 수립하여야 하고 이를 지원하기 위한 국가 평생교육진흥을 운영하며 평생교육사 자격 등에 대해야 합니다.
The state shall formulate lifelong education promotion policies, operate National Institute for Lifelong Education, and manage the qualification for lifelong education teachers.
지방자치단체 지역에 특화된 평생교육의 지역 특성에 맞는 정책을 수립하고 운영할 권한을 가지므로 온 국민의 수요를 충족할 수 있는 밀착형 평생교육이 이루어지고 있습니다.
Local governments also have authority to establish and operate policies for regional specified lifelong education. So lifelong education that meet the demand of the whole population in the country can be achieved.
둘째, 민간 평생교육기관의 운영은 자율에 기대 일정한 자격을 충족하는 기관에 대해서는 적극적인 지원을 해주게 됩니다.
Secondly, the operation of the lifelong education institutions is not controlled by the government, but active support is provided for the institutions that meet the certain qualification.
민간 주도의 평생교육 내지 교육시설에 대해서는 국가 운영에 관해 평가하고 결과를 공표함으로써 수요자에게 정보를 제공뿐만 아니라 행정, 재정적 지원에 반영하면서 경쟁을 유도하고 있습니다.
Lifelong education or vocational education led by private sector is evaluated and open to the public by the government, which not only provides information to the educational demanders, but also induces fair competition among lifelong education facilities by reflecting the performance in administrative and financial support.
이 정부 주도 평생교육 중 대학 주도 평생교육은 특히 학령 생산 인구의 감소는 대학의 재정 극복을 위한 성인 대상 교육 그리고 인구 고령화 문제 해결을 위한 노인 문화 교육에 초점을 두고 있습니다.
Especially the university-led lifelong education focuses on re-education for adults to overcome the financial crisis of universities, and cultural education for elderly to relieve the issue of population aging.
마지막으로 평교육 제도의 한계는 평생교육 필요한 분야 발전의 소외 계층의 일회성 이벤트로 가능성, 교육시 난립으로 인한 중복 투자 등의 해결하기 위해 다음과 같은 제도들을 마련하고 있습니다.
Lastly, to solve the limitation in implementing the lifelong education, like difficulties in discovering fields requiring lifelong education, issues of excluded group from the education, chances to become a one-off event, and overlapping investment due to the proliferation of the private educational facilities, we prefer following measures.
첫째, 다양한 층위의 평생 사업이 효율적으로 실시될 수 있도록 하는 것은 결국 정부의 역할이라는 점에서 계획 수립부터 지원까지 일관된 정책을 유지하는 것이 매우 중요합니다.
First, it's very important to maintain the consistent policy in that it is the governmental ultimate role to ensure that lifelong education on various levels should be efficiently implemented.
둘째, 교육 프로그램의 개발에 있어 교육 수요의 발견이 중요한 이를 위해 매치업 프로그램 운영하여 개별 기업이 필요한 수요를 충족할 뿐만 아니라 인공지능, 데이터 등과 같이 미유망 산업 분야에 대한 교육 프로그램 개발에도 중점을 두고 있습니다.
Second, to develop educational programs, it is important to discover educational demand. To this end, the matchup programs are operated to meet the needs of individual companies and also attempts to develop educational programs for promising future industries such as artificial intelligence or big data are emphasized.
넷째, 평생교육에 있어 소외계층이 발생하지 않도록 하는 것이 평생교육 국가 의무의 핵심이라는 점에서 교육시설의 지원뿐만 아니라 지역 형 평생교육 활성화 및 소외계층을 대상한 평생교육 바우처 등의 정책을 펴고.
Third, as removing the alienated groups from lifelong education is the main role of the state. We are providing the educational voucher for lifelong education with the vulnerable, as well as financial supports for educational facilities.
넷째, 평생교육이
A minute, Professor Ho.
Hello?
Yes, Professor Jae Kim, thank you very much for introducing. I would like to, first of all, I know a little bit about South Korea. Their vocational program is probably best in the world because 20 years back when I wanted to start community colleges concept in India with the help of United States India Education Foundation, and we wanted to skill these school dropouts and so on. And that is the time when I learned the system in South Korea and that how amazingly they have achieved that. So I still remember that they said that 92% of the Koreans, if this percentage has been changed, I'm not aware of it. They said 92% of the Koreans are having a one or the more skills to undertake any kind of work. And we will get back to you soon after hearing Professor Roswita M. Aboe. So just let us know about your country and your perspective on reskilling and upskilling.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Sahni. I think first of all, I'd like to introduce my campus, Universitas Khairun, or we can call it Unhair. It is actually just established from a private to state university, changing from a private to state university in 2004. So it's almost 20 years now. And we are very small island, and especially in the northern part of Indonesia. And we follow all of the condition that stipulated by the Ministry of Education related to the lifelong learning and experiential learning of education in 21st century. As people may know worldwide that the changing of administration in Indonesia government, it also brought the new changing in the establishment of new curriculum in Indonesia. And under this new ministry and the policy, we have been experienced 10 times curriculum changes related to reskill or to develop the skill of the students. So from 1947, and now it's moved to emancipated learning, or we call it Merdeka Belajar. So this one seems quite promising because it adjusted with what the need or the development of the technology now require for the output of every graduate. So in the growth of knowledge and information, Indonesia policies also follow the what that has been worldwide. So especially in Indonesia for vocational school, they also engage industry or private public sector as a field practicum or apprenticeship. But it's not only that, because in Indonesia vocational school, they are considered that in the position of senior high school. But now, not only after that senior high school graduate, but for the university, before graduate from the university or the college, they also engage in the industry or private and public sector to do the field practicum. In the emancipated curriculum, there are the adjustment in designing lesson plan, autonomy to respective school to design lesson plan, learning objective, learning activities and assessment, and it is focused on cognitive, affective, and psychomotor analysis. As we concerned that long before the implementation of emancipated curriculum, the teacher, there is no single autonomy that given to each of the government or the region or the teacher themselves, because it's centralized. The curriculum is centralized, and each of the schools should follow what's stipulated by the centralized curriculum. And that means there are no adjustment of what is required by each of the school. So this is very important because in designing the curriculum, the government give the opportunity for each of the respective school, because as we know that Indonesia is consisted of archipelagic islands. So we are 1,000 of island, and we're living not in one land, but we are separated from island and 1,000 of small island. So in restructuring the new curriculum, the government of Indonesia needs a very, very big effort to do that. Yeah. So in curriculum, before emancipated curriculum, we call it curriculum 2013. There are 7 part of component for designing a lesson plan in order to achieve the objective of the learning path. For the emancipated curriculum, they're just simplified to become only 4 part of the component. And in related to education for 21st century now, the Ministry of Education and Culture make the policy. When we call it the emancipated learning, there are around 23 policy that bring fundamental changes to Indonesian educational system. This is through the emancipated learning. The first one, it was released in December 10, 2019. This is focused on primary and secondary education. First one is the replacement of the National Standard School Examination. This is the mechanism that require all the students to undergo the examination, but this is actually, it is not satisfactorily. So the government just give it back to the school to assess the student competency in the form of written text, but also with the student portfolio. So the respective school know very well the capacity of their students. So it is not only centralized, but it's autonomous. Yeah. So the second one is the replacement of the national exam. So as we know from since from the beginning, before this emancipated learning implemented, the national exam is still run by the government, and this is not quite agreed by most of the school in all of the region in Indonesia. And the simplification of the lesson plan, the teacher are given more autonomy to develop lesson plans that are effective, efficient, and best facilitate the students' learning. For 23 emancipated learning model that I have mentioned before, I think I will not go through to the 23 emancipated learning model, but I give 1 or 2 examples. The first one is given the autonomy to respective school of elementary and senior high school. And the second one is for emancipated campus. In the emancipated campus, especially this is for the higher education, well, actually, there is a lot of complaint related to when we talk about the independent or emancipated campus, we also talk about independent curriculum. So the teacher and educator was feared that their curriculum would make teacher, the student as like the guinea pig or for the education system. But I think this is not the case, because for the government gradually improve the system of this policy and give the opportunity for each of the respective campuses to do some transformative move. Like, for example, they are free to open the new study program by consulting with the central government. And in the higher education accreditation system is no longer by numeric system, but with the quality of the campuses itself. And state university become the legal entities. Before that, it's not legal entities. And also the right to study 3 semesters outside the study program. What I would like to relate here is that the right for the student to study outside the study program or their own university to implement or to experience the learning in another place, and this also given them the opportunity to develop their skill and to this is to reach the objective of a lifelong learning. For the emancipated campus, the students are also given the, as for the information, for 23 models or the policy, the government provided a fund for every project or every program. So one of the emancipated campus program is the Independent Students Exchange Program, from where they can get new experience when they study out of their study program or out of their university. They can study within the university in Indonesia, and also they can have the opportunity to study abroad. They may give them, will give the student the cultural exchange, inspiration, and also reflection and social contribution. By doing this program of student exchange program, they will get a new experience. This is regarding the value of diversity, of ethnicity, religion, belief, culture, and language. They also have the opportunity to reflect on national values and the diversity. This is they experience it in the point of view in understanding the real condition that students encounter every day. It has also strengthened their ability to build unity in the diversity. They can meet and interact with the students from different universities, develop their leadership skill and self-confidence, and also get an opportunity to take a choice of course outside the study program, and also to broaden and deepen their academic knowledge.
Excellent.
Yeah. So,
well, listen, we have to come back to you because we have some questions as well.
Okay. Okay,
so
thank you, sir.
I requested my friend Professor Jae Kim as well. Now, it's a great learning, first of all, from South Korea to Indonesia, because we need to learn these things for India. But I just want to tell you where Norah needs to pitch in is that more than 12 million young girls and boys between the age 15 to 29 of your age, they are expected to enter India's labor force for the next 2 decades. Now, the question is, what are the challenges in redefining skills development, lifelong and experiential learning, and how can these challenges be addressed? We would love to hear to Norah first, and then we will go to Professor Jae Kim, followed by Professor Roswita, please.
All right, thank you for that very pertinent and complicated question. In my mind, and based on our programming and the way we do things, skill development is very much something that cannot be done in isolation of industry. We need to be connecting with industry and community to find out what it is they're actually needing. And this need becomes even more imperative as transformation, digital skills ramp up and change so rapidly. So I think one of the mistakes that we can make in higher education is thinking that we know necessarily what those skills are. So the first thing is, in order to make sure our students are ready for the workforce, we need to be connecting in with industry and finding out very intentionally what is it that industry needs from us, and then how can that dovetail with our academic programs. So I am not suggesting that industry tells us what we teach, but rather that we make sure that what we are teaching is going to be of relevance as students graduate and get into the workforce. So I would say that's the first thing. Secondly, our programs, as I've mentioned, are work integrated learning or cooperative education. And again, this is an intentional partnership with industry. If industry needs skills, then they also need to participate in supporting the development of those skills in our young people. And that's what happens in our co-op programs, for example, in work integrated learning, is that they are partners in the education. Our students get excellent education and academic programming, then they go into industry workplaces, and our industry partners are also an educational environment. They support the learning of our students and help them continue to develop. And it's this type of partnership that I think is critical strategy in addressing the questions and the challenges that you've raised, Professor Sahni.
Thank you very much. And we would like to hear from Professor Jae Kim, and then from Professor Roswita as well.
교수님,
Yes.
예.
한국의 평생교육은 국가의 의무로 규정되어 있기 때문에 기존의 교육 시스템과 충돌한 지점은 거의 없고 분업이 잘 이루어지고 있습니다. 한국 사회 인구 감소 및 노령화에 따른 사회적 부작용을 해소하는 하나로 평생교육을 발령하고 있습니다.
As we already mentioned in the introduction, so Korea lifelong education is regulated by the state duty. So between two educations, there are a few points of conflict with the existing education system, but well balanced. Accordingly, Korean society is taking advantage of lifelong education as one of measures to resolve those problems by population aging as well as population decline.
예를 들어 대학 주도 평생교육은 특히 학령 인구, 생산 인구의 감소에 따른 대학 재정 위기 극복을 위한 성인 대상의 재교육 그리고 인구 노령화의 문제 해결을 위해 노인 문화 교육에 중점했습니다.
For example, the university-led lifelong education focuses especially on re-education for adults to overcome the financial crisis of the universities and cultural education for elderly to relieve the issue of population aging. 그리고 교수님 7번도 같이 해주십시오.
예, 또한 우리 한국의 경우 심각한 인구 감소로 인해서 외국인 노동자들이 노동시장에 참여하고 있고 다문화 가정 또한 급격히 증가하고 있습니다.
In Korea, many foreign workers are participating in the labor market, and multicultural families are rapidly increasing due to the serious Korean population decline.
단일 민족으로 여태 겪어보지 못한 문화적 차이는 필수적으로 차별을 낳을 수밖에 없다는 점에서 정규 교육 단계에서부터 차별 해소를 위해 교육이 필수적입니다.
In the sense that cultural differences that have not been experienced as a single ethnicity in Korea inevitably lead to discrimination. The education with the cross-cultural competence or intercultural dialogue is essential to eliminate discrimination in every stage of the education.
따라 교육 정책을 입안하는 단계에서 문화적 다양성을 위한 과목을 필수화하는 노력이 필요할 뿐만 아니라 개별 교육기관 차원에서도 차별 예방 교육을 정규화하려는 노력이 필요하다고 생각합니다. Thank you.
Therefore, it is necessary to make effort to make a subject for cultural diversity essential from scratch of formulating education policies and also regularize anti-discrimination education at the level of individual educational system. And also, I'd like to say sorry for being delayed in delivering the introduction. It's only because we need translators. So please understand our situation.
Well, thank you very much. It was very much interesting, but we having so many questions, and the whole world would like to learn from you. That is the reason I cut short, and because we wanted to ask more and more questions to you. Now, this particular question goes to Professor Roswita, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So in Indonesia in 2023, 5.86% of the total national workforce, most of them are unemployed from the age group 20 to 24 years. There are accounted for 2.8 1.54 million people. So related to the implementation or to achieve the lifelong and experiential learning, I'm talking from the higher education perspective, especially from university, Khairun University. The students are given the chance to follow or to join the program, and this is the government trigger the campus to students to do the entrepreneurship program, and also a lot of program that may encourage them to study outside the university. They can study with the industry, with the private sector, and also with the public sector, the government, and from the beginning, before they join the internship or field practicum, the campus established a good collaboration with the industry and also with the government or the institution, and then they are free to exchange the student to the industry. So this become like promising, but step by step, the Indonesia will follow what has been required by lifelong and experiential learning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My next question is to Dr. Norah, is what is the role of cross-cultural competence and intercultural dialogue in promoting education for all in the 21st century, and how can they be fostered in education system?
Thank you. And this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, is the issue of cross-cultural competence and intercultural effectiveness. Any organizational setting will have different cultures within it, whether it's cultures based on gender, on different ethnicity, on age, on different perspectives. There are cultures happening everywhere, and it's a critical capability of our students to be able to understand their own cultural stance, their own cultural values, and those others that exist in the groups that they're wanting to work with, and more to the point, have skills and capabilities to be able to have effective encounters in situations where cultures are different and there may be cultural clashes or challenges. And I think this is becoming even more imperative and important. In our case, we do provide educational programming to students to prepare them for example, workplace cultures and how they can be effective in different workplaces. And the programming and the theoretical construct that we use is something called cultural intelligence, CQ, which you may be familiar with. And that's a body of research and work that's been around for over 2 decades, I'm quite sure. It was 2003. Chris Early did the first publication on cultural intelligence, and it really gives these 4 dimensions that are part of developing cultural competence. A knowledge dimension, motivational dimension, metacognitive or a strategic dimension, and a behavioral dimension. And we teach students about that and also help them understand how to develop strengths and capabilities so that they can be effective in any kind of cultural setting. And that's whether they're working in a company in their hometown, whether they're going internationally, whether they're interacting with students in their classrooms from very different cultures. So I think it's extremely important. And when you speak to industry and industry leads, it's a very important capability for workplaces as well. Thank you.
Now I have a very specific question to Professor Jae Kim. The question is, in the absence of any regulator of higher education institution focused on lifelong learning in South Korea, how does government ensure that quality is maintained?
교수님, 저기 발표문의 끝에 나오는 이야기를 하시면 될 것 같습니다. 어떻게 한국에서 평생 교육의 퀄리티를 유지할 수 있는지 그렇게 이야기를 하고 있습니다. 그러면 마지막에 한계로 발표하셨던 부분을 이야기하시면 될 것 같습니다.
예, 한국의 경우에 평생교육 사업이 효율적으로 실시할 수 있도록 하는 결국 정부의 역할입니다. 그래서 계획 수립부터 지원까지 일관된 정책을 유지하는 것이 중요하다고 생각합니다.
So, in the perspective of Korea, it is very important to maintain consistent policy in that it is the government's ultimate role to ensure that lifelong education on various levels should be efficiently implemented.
또한 교육 프로그램 개발에 있어서 교육 수요의 발견이 중요한데 이를 위해 매치업 프로그램을 운영하여 개별 기업이 필요한 수요를 충족하고 있을 뿐 아니라 인공지능, 빅데이터와 같은 유망 산업 분야에 대해서도 교육 프로그램 개발에도 중점을 두고 있습니다.
To develop educational programs, it is important to discover educational demand. To this end, the mature programs are operated to meet the needs of the individual companies and also attempts to develop educational programs for promising future industries like AI, artificial intelligence, or big data are emphasized.
또한 평생교육의 실시에 있어서 계층이 발생하지 않도록 하는 것이 평생교육에 대한 국가 의무의 핵심이 되는 점에서 교육 시장 지원뿐만 아니라 질착형 평생교육 활성화 및 소외계층을 대상으로 한 평생교육 바우처 제공 등의 정책을 펴고 있습니다.
As removing the alienated or exclusive groups from lifelong education is the main role of the state, we are providing the educational voucher for lifelong education with the vulnerable, as well as financial support for educational facility, which is in the private sector.
마지막 평생교육이 개인 차원의 일회성 이벤트에 가지 않도록 하는 장치로서 교육 이수자의 학점을 적립하면 학점 은행 제도를 시행하고 있습니다. Thank you.
As a tool to ensure that lifelong education does not end up as a one-time event, we are utilizing the credit bank system for those who completed the class to accumulate completion credit.
Great, thank you very much. In fact, we are getting lot many questions from the audience from all over the world. And one interesting question, which is for Professor Roswita, is that they said we have talked about the requirement that today's students commit themselves to be a lifelong learners, to prioritize learning in decisions about what jobs to take, where to live, and what to do. What are the mindsets and tools or abilities that will be needed for students to be leaders in the future?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So in this case, I still talk about the emancipated learning. That first, the curriculum itself prioritizing a project-based learning or the case method. In this case, the students are given the chance to develop, to design, and also to work by themselves to solve the problem, and they will get the experience by doing that system. In this new policy, 30% of the student learning is practical and the rest is the theory. But they were given the opportunity to experience what they have already done. And for what we know as the emancipated curriculum, there are 20 credit points that the student can obtain from outside their campus or from outside their class. So in this credit point, they can also work as an internship in the industry, and they can they immerse themselves with the work of the industry, and as I already mentioned before, beside the industry, they can also work with the government, with the private or public government, and they can develop their themselves. And they will have the competency. So it is even the hard skill or soft skill, which is useful for them, because this will make, they will experience this and this will make them become more competent and ready to enter the world of work. This also give the wide space for students to improve their competency. So from before they graduate, they already develop their skill, their competency, and they are ready to come or to enter the workforce.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last question, which only 1 minute reflection from each one of you is required. This question is also being posted by the audience from somewhere in the world. It says lifelong learning is going to be a norm in future. So we will see older generation shifting domains. They will need internship and apprenticeships, things that at present are done by young students at the age of 20 to 30 years old. Question is, how can universities and companies support such older individuals in their transitional journey? Can existing structures of career support continue, or will we need major changes in them? So this question is to all three of you, but 1 minute each because we have just 5 minutes left. Please go ahead. Norah.
Thank you. That's a very interesting question. And it's something actually that we've been thinking about as well as we look to the future and the trends that we're seeing in the Canadian landscape, and many of the similar things that Professor Moon has mentioned about aging workforces and the need for lifelong learning, also as a strategy for health and care of aging populations. And this missing piece about work integrated learning or internships for the more mature learner is a real need, actually, and a real gap that we've identified here at the University of Waterloo. The way it is enacted right now is when students go into workplaces and they work in teams with employees of that organization, effectively there's intergenerational learning happening within that context. But I think there's a lot of room for being more intentional about that kind of programming and being more welcoming of the older learner to be able to not only take courses and learn new material, but also apply that learning in work integrated learning contexts, such as we do currently with cooperative education or work integrated learning internship programs.
Great. Yes, Professor Moon Jae Kim.
예, 교수님, 그
예.
9번 문제 아까 전에 그
예.
답변을 하셔서 다시 하시면 될 것 같습니다.
뭐 아까 말씀을 드렸지만 한국의 교육은 국가의 의무입니다. 그래서 기존 교육 시스템과 충돌하는 것은 거의 없고 서로 분업이 잘 되고 있습니다. 한국 사회는 인구 감소 및 노령에 따른 사회적 부작용을 해소하는 방안 하나로 평생교육이 활용되고 있습니다. 특히나 대학 평생교육은 학령 인구, 생산 인구 감소에 따른 대학 재정기를 극복하기 위한 성인 대상의 재교육이 실시되고 있고 인구 고령화 문제 해결을 위해 노인 문화에 중점을 두고 있습니다. Thank you.
Fortunately, it is related to the prior questions that I answered. So we are suffering in the kind of population decrease and population aging. So as I said before, Korean society is taking advantage of lifelong education as one of the measures to resolve those problems. For example, the university-led lifelong education focuses especially on the re-education for adults to overcome financial crisis, and also cultural education for elderly to relieve the issue of the population aging.
Thank you very much.
And the closing remarks by Roswita.
Yeah, thank you. So I believe that through the emancipated learning, our ministry and also the government, industry, private and public institution aware of what they cooperate and collaborate with toward achieving the experiential and lifelong learning. So it offers a new paradigm of skill development, experiential and lifelong learning, especially of what is required for 21st century learning. There are a lot of challenges, of course, but this must be the implementer of the emancipated learning itself. So it also gives chance for school authorities and local government to manage their own education in accordance with the condition in their area. So to accelerate the achievement of national education goals, preparing for the global challenges, not only for the 4.0 but also 5.0 revolution era. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Since just the 2 minutes left, I just want to tell you again that India is number 3 in the world in unicorns. India is number 2 in the numbers of startups. India is number 1 in the world, starting new initiative startups every day. I also want to tell you the major concern which we have, every minute, 30 people are migrating from rural to urban areas. Every minute, 30 people. Now, these 30 people, when they come to urban cities, they are looking for jobs. They have to have some skill in their hand. This particular session with 3 major stalwarts like Dr. Norah Mcrae, Professor Jae Kim, and Professor Roswita Aboe, we have learned a lot. This is a very, informative session for Indians, because we have learned today, what the universities are doing and what specific countries like Indonesia and even South Korea is doing. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure that thank you to audience from all over the world. People are sitting and listening this, and they have also contributed while asking a very relevant questions to all of us. I'm really grateful to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sahni.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.